The crystalline beings of Zephyria had always prided themselves on their advanced agricultural technology. Their hydroponic towers stretched toward the purple sky like gleaming monuments to efficiency, producing precisely calculated yields through automated systems that required no soil, no weather, and certainly no backbreaking labor. So when Marcus Chen arrived at the newly established human settlement on the colony world of Kepler 442b, with nothing but a collection of seed packets, gardening tools, and what appeared to be bags of dirt, the Zephyrians found it thoroughly amusing. "Look at the primitive human," chittered Vextar, the colony's agricultural overseer, his translucent body shimmering with what could only be described as condescension. He actually believes he can grow food in the ground like some prehistoric creature. The other Zephyrians gathered around Marcus's allocated plot, a modest 5 acres on the outskirts of the settlement, watching with barely concealed amusement as he methodically tilled the alien soil with what they considered laughably primitive tools. "You know, human," Vextar said, his voice carrying that peculiar harmonic quality of his species, "our towers produce 847% more yield per square meter than any soil-based agriculture. Perhaps you should abandon this hobby and purchase food from our surplus like the other species." Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow and looked up at the towering alien. At 62, he had spent most of his life farming the challenging terraces of northern China. But this was different. This was opportunity. "Thanks for the advice," Marcus replied politely, "but I think I'll stick with what I know." The Zephyrians exchanged what passed for amused glances among their kind. Even the other human colonists, mostly engineers, scientists, and technicians, regarded Marcus with a mixture of embarrassment and sympathy. Why hadn't he adapted to the superior alien methods like everyone else? But Marcus had studied the soil samples, analyzed the atmospheric composition, and researched the planet's unique characteristics during the long journey from Earth. Kepler 442b had a longer growing season than Earth. Richer volcanic soil, and its binary star system provided an almost perfect light spectrum for photosynthesis. What it lacked was the aggressive efficiency of Earth's evolved pests and diseases. While the Zephyrians focused on their sterile towers, Marcus planted his seeds with the patience of generations. He had brought heritage varieties from Earth, crops that had been selected not just for yield, but for resilience, nutrition, and adaptability. His grandmother's soybeans, ancient wheat strains from the Fertile Crescent, potatoes that had survived Irish famines. The first month brought gentle ridicule. The second month brought open laughter when a brief drought stressed his young plants while the hydroponic towers hummed along unaffected. But Marcus knew what the aliens didn't. That stress often made plants stronger, their roots deeper, their survival instincts sharper. By the third month, something remarkable began to happen. Marcus's plants didn't just grow, they thrived in ways that defied the Zephyrians' careful calculations. The alien soil, unmarked by millennia of intensive agriculture, provided nutrients in combinations that Earth crops had never encountered. The extended growing season allowed for multiple harvests. Most importantly, the plants began to adapt, their genetic flexibility allowing them to take advantage of the unique conditions. The first harvest was merely impressive. The second was extraordinary. By the fourth, Marcus was producing yields that made the Zephyrians' engineers recalibrate their measuring devices. "This cannot be accurate," Vextar insisted, staring at the numbers. "Soil-based agriculture cannot achieve such efficiency." But the proof was literally in the ground. Marcus's 5 acres were producing enough food to feed 50 families, and the quality was unlike anything the colony had tasted. The vegetables were larger, more nutritious, and had flavors that made the bland hydroponic produce seem like cardboard. Then the crisis hit. A solar flare damaged the power grid that fed the hydroponic towers. Backup systems failed. In a matter of days, the colony's primary food source was offline, leaving 8,000 beings facing the specter of starvation. While Zephyrian engineers worked frantically to restore their systems, Marcus quietly walked through his fields calculating. The harvest wasn't scheduled for another 2 weeks, but desperate times called for practical measures. "We can take the young plants now," he told the hastily assembled emergency council. "They won't be at full maturity, but they'll be edible and nutritious. Between what's ready and what can be harvested early, I can feed the colony for at least a month." Vextar, his usual arrogance replaced by desperate hope, could barely believe what he was hearing. "You would do this? Even though we mocked your methods?" Marcus shrugged. already mentally organizing the massive harvest operation he was about to undertake. Food is food. People are people. Whether you're human, Zephyrian, or whatever, everyone needs to eat. Over the next 72 hours, Marcus's small farm became the center of the colony's salvation. Volunteers from every species worked to harvest, process, and distribute the crop. The Zephyrians, humbled by their dependency on the primitive human farmer, threw their technological capabilities behind the effort, using their precision equipment to maximize every grain and vegetable. When the hydroponic systems finally came back online 3 weeks later, the colony had not only survived but thrived. More importantly, everything had changed. "I have been thinking," Vextar said, finding Marcus back in his fields already preparing for the next planting. "Perhaps our methods could complement each other. Your soil wisdom and our technological precision." Marcus smiled, his hands deep in the rich alien earth that had become his home. "I'd like that. But remember, farming isn't just about the technology. It's about understanding that sometimes the old ways work because they've had time to prove themselves." The Zephyrian's translucent form shimmered with what Marcus had learned to recognize as respect. Indeed, and sometimes it takes a crisis to remember that the most advanced solution isn't always the best solution. As the binary sun set over Kepler 442b, Marcus continued his work, knowing that his simple seed packets had planted something far more important than crops. They had planted understanding between species, and proof that sometimes the most profound technologies are the ones that have been refined, not by machines, but by generations of human hands working in harmony with the earth.